Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? If you're just watching this right now, if you're just tuning in, I'm not live anymore. You're watching the replay. But again, I'm so pumped that you are here with us. Make sure that you drop a note and tell me that you're catching the replay. Say hello. I hope that everybody's had a great couple of days. I hope that you have already had a chance to check out day one and the things that we talked about, kind of the reasons why we tend to, some of the reasons why we tend to have some of these cravings. Today we're going to talk about how to now navigate our cravings. I'm going to make sure really quickly that I'm live in the right group. So I'm just going to give it just as I'm trying to double check and just make sure that we're in the right spot here. I believe we are. Looks like we are. Yes. Okay. I'm in the right spot. Always a good thing. Okay. So like I said, today we are going to talk about how to navigate some of these cravings. So you've logged a couple days worth of your food habits, your craving habits, the situations that you tend to find yourself in when you notice those cravings pop up, whether it be the way that you feel physically, the way that you feel emotionally, whether you're bored and that's when the craving hits, whether you notice that you're really tired, whether you notice that you're actually really hungry because it's been a while since you've eaten, all those different factors that come into play. Now we're going to talk about how we can navigate those. So as we talked about on Monday, bioindividuality plays a huge role when you're getting in tune with your body and being able to recognize what cues your body is trying to send you. Hopefully tracking those last couple of days of eating and snacking and your cravings and all that has given you some insight into those scenarios that you personally most often have when those cravings pop up. Those of you who commented on the check-in thread yesterday had some super insightful awareness moments. And it's crazy how it always blows my mind how just writing it down can open your eyes so much. I always notice things. I always think that I know what my tendencies are and what my habits are. But then when I write it down, things always pop up that I just wasn't aware of. So writing things down and logging can be a very, very insightful process. So if you haven't done it yet, I really encourage you to do it. If you did it, I encourage you to do it for a little bit longer because oftentimes we won't necessarily see those things pop up in 1 to 2 days. It can take like a week, possibly even 2, to really get a feel for our habits. So now let's talk about how to handle those cravings that do pop up. Again, really quick, when I say crush your cravings, right? The name of this workshop is Crush Your Cravings. When I say that, I mean learn how to do whatever is going to help you feel your best. Sometimes that means making this choice over here. Sometimes that means making this choice over here. I teach food freedom in my program. So getting away from having any emotions directed around your food choices. Okay, you're not a good or bad person based on what you choose to eat. Food is not good or bad. We simply have choices, and some are more in line with our goals and how we want to feel than others are. But we always have choices, and we can always make different choices the next time around. The point is that we are in control, not our food and not our emotions. So we're going to start by talking about a couple general solutions. So in general, speaking of cravings, what can we do to kind of not curb them, again, just kind of be in tune and make sure that we are able to pay attention to the cues that our body is trying to send us. The first one is to eat breakfast. And this one can be a hard one for some people because depending on what your natural tendencies are, depending on what kind of lifestyle you live, this can be a variance for people. And that's something that we would definitely work through in the one-on-one program. But for those of you that tend to have cravings later in the day, this one can be super, super helpful. You're giving your body fuel for the day, and it's helpful to think of it just like that. It's fuel. what does your body need to fuel? It needs those good complex carbs to break down slowly over the day. You use that energy throughout the day, and some good protein to keep you full for longer. So eating breakfast helps your body kind of transition between the different states. You know, you go from sleeping and resting to all of a sudden I need to function and I need to have energy. Eating breakfast can really help you do that. It's also good for weight loss, which is a topic for another time, not one that I tend to focus on. But it's also going to help stabilize your blood sugar. That's going to reduce your cravings and your mindless snacking later on in the day. So eating breakfast. The second one that kind of tags along with that is eating throughout the day in regular intervals whenever it's possible. So that teaches you that your next meal is actually coming, and it can use the energy that you're giving it now versus storing it for later because it's not really sure when that next meal is going to come. Skipping meals during the day puts your body into kind of a survival mode. Guys, I swear I cannot talk today. Puts your body into a survival mode of sorts, and it will actually store that energy versus using it right away. This doesn't mean eat all day long, right? You actually have a hormone in your body that acts kind of like a street sweeper, and it comes along and it cleans things up throughout the day. But it only actually is triggered on an empty stomach, which happens like 2 to 3 hours after your last meal. So if you're constantly eating all day long, this process won't happen. I plan to talk more about this when we go into gut health stuff down the road, but that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind. Eating all day long actually, some people tend to graze, which is totally me. I naturally tend to kind of graze, and that actually makes it harder for your body to do some of its natural processes versus eating regularly throughout the day so your body can expect when it's going to get its next energy source. The third one is decreasing caffeine, which sounds like a pretty standard one, I guess, maybe that one feels like an obvious one, maybe it doesn't. But caffeine, diuretics can make blood sugar unstable. My brain will catch on today. Diuretics can make your blood sugar unstable, and this can cause cravings to increase. Not to mention, depending on when you're having your caffeine, it's going to interrupt your sleep cycle, which we all know now, based on Monday, our conversation, can also impact your cravings. If you do have cravings, if you're craving something sweet, a really simple thing that you can do to kind of satisfy that sweet craving but not mess with your body in other ways is to eat sweet veggies and fruits, okay? There are lots of vegetables that have that natural sweetness to them, but they also have a lot of other benefits. They've got the phytonutrients. A lot of them are jam-packed with water naturally. They're really nutrient dense, so you're not getting these empty calories that are also going to mess with your blood sugar and create even more cravings. Excuse me. And the last kind of generalized one is to not buy stuff that doesn't align with your goals. It's important to mention here, I think, that, again, I'm all about food freedom, okay? I am of the belief that we should not say no to foods because we're restricting. If you want that piece of chocolate, eat that piece of chocolate because you truly enjoy it, right? But here's where being mindful really comes in. There's a difference between eating a piece of chocolate because you enjoy it and you know that there's some actual health benefits to having dark chocolate, and eating it because it's there and it's a habit. Those are two very different things, and your body is going to tell you two different messages. If it doesn't align with your goals, you're more likely to attach negative emotions to that choice. And remember, we're trying to get away from attaching negative emotions to any of our food choices. They're choices, and we can always choose differently next time. But not having it in the house consistently makes having that thing a conscious effort that you now have to make, right? If you're craving chocolate and it's not in the house, you're gonna have to make that more mindful choice to actually decide, is it worth it to take the time and the energy that it's going to take to go get it from the store? And if it is, then you're gonna do it. And you're probably really gonna actually want it, and you're really gonna actually enjoy it. If it's not, you can find something else to do. So if you have these, again, I hesitate to call them like weaknesses because we're getting away from those negative feelings towards food, but that is how we tend to when we're starting out and just learning how to have this mindful fueling mindset. We tend to think of them as weaknesses. Like I can't have chocolate in front of me because I know that I'll eat it, right? So if if that's something that you experience and you're trying to get away from, don't have it in the house. That's not saying don't have the chocolate. That's saying you're creating a situation where you then have to be more mindful and intentional about having it. And it's going to be a lot more worth it, let me tell you. And the same thing with like alcohol, right? Having it constantly in the house makes it so much easier to just indulge in it mindlessly. If it's not in the house and you feel like you want to have a drink, you're going to make the conscious effort to go out for one. And you're more likely to then make an actual experience of it than you are if it's just right in the house, right? So those are just kind of some generic, like all-encompassing solutions to cravings, but now we're going to talk about some solutions to those craving triggers that we talked about on Monday. So hydration, one of the easiest things to take care of and also one of the easiest to forget, right? We all know we need to stay hydrated. You need water for your cells to function properly. It's important for digestion. It's important for your immune response. Excuse me. It's important for your brain function, all your metabolic processes and absorption of all your vitamins and minerals, all the things, right? We need water for all the things. The general guideline is to aim for half of your body weight in ounces each day. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you want to shoot for 75 ounces of water. And a lot of that is going to vary based on different things. So if your activity level, like your activity level is going to be different than this person's activity level. If you're exerting yourself a ton, you're going to need more water. If you're breastfeeding, you're going to need more water. If you're changing climates, right? When you're traveling, those types of things can impact your hydration needs. And so it's important to be mindful of that. And one really great way to be mindful of that is tracking your water for a while. A super simple way to make sure that you are getting enough water each day, and so it doesn't become this kind of thing that you resist, is drinking a glass right when you wake up, right? So you can put a glass of water on your bedside table, and first thing when you wake up, you have a glass of water. If you have a glass of water before every meal or snack, even in between servings at a meal, that's just one more way to get that water intake regularly throughout the day. I have gone through periods where I've had to set an actual reminder on my phone to remind me to drink a glass of water, because we all get caught up in our day-to-day stuff and it's so easy to just not do, right? It's really easy to do. It's just as easy not to do. So setting a little reminder on my phone, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta go drink some water. Go get a glass of water. And again, like I said on Monday, I am not saying to mask your hunger with water. But hydration is so, so important. And if you're hydrated, you know those cravings that you're noticing are not because you're thirsty, right? You just know automatically that that's not the cause because you're hydrated. And then obviously all of the benefits of being fully hydrated. Okay. And y'all, if you have questions while we're going through this, if you want me to clarify anything, please make sure you put comments in. I want to help in any possible way that I can. So, one of the other things that we talked about as triggers for cravings is being tired. When we are lacking restful sleep, that's going to create cravings in our bodies. The obvious answer is to get more sleep, right? But it's not always that simple. That's not always possible for everybody. We've got busy schedules. We've got kids and animals who need our attention or are up at night. Ideally, we'd all get at least 7 hours of sleep. That has been proven to be the lineman for productivity, right? Like that's the baseline of maximum mental efficiency. You've got to have at least 7 hours. It's been shown in studies that when you get less than 7 hours, you're simply not as mentally efficient, okay? But if you can't, for whatever reason, get to that amount of sleep, you can do things that are going to improve the restfulness of the sleep that you do get, okay? I'm going to do another workshop or a group coaching program on improving your sleep, and we'll go a lot more into specifics of how you can really improve your sleep, but there are some simple things that add up that make a really big difference. So the obvious one that most people are aware of is turning your screens off at least an hour before bed. Some places say 2 to 3 hours, but we start small, right? It's baby steps. Baby steps lead to bigger steps. We start small. Turn your screens off at least an hour before bed. It's so easy to fall into, especially as a mom, the whole mindset of everyone's finally quiet now, I can sit and scroll and catch up, like get into that mode, but it will make it harder for you to get restful sleep. The other one is having a routine at bedtime. And this is something that as adults, we don't necessarily think about. But it's like we do with babies and little kids when we're trying to help them navigate sleep, right? A routine is so huge for so many little kids, right? They take a bath, they brush their teeth, they read a story, they snuggle into bed, and their brains know it's time to wind down and sleep. It's the same for us. If you can create a routine that you follow each night, you will teach your body and your brain that that's what you're doing, okay? Keeping your room dark and cool, those are also natural cues that tell your body it's time to slow down and it's time to rest and recover. Another way that you can improve your sleep is to make sure that you're getting plenty of sun during the day. Sunlight during the day is going to release that serotonin, and then dark in the evenings is going to release that melatonin. If you work inside and it's harder to be out during the day, take a lunch outside, right? If you work from home, like many of us are these days, do some of your work out on the porch if you can. Getting that sunlight, that vitamin D, those are all things that are going to really help improve your sleep restfulness at night. And then moving your body during the day too. Taking the stairs at work instead of the elevator or wherever you are. Use your kids as weights, right? If you feel like you just can't possibly you can't go to the gym, or you can't possibly get time to yourself because your kids are constantly all over you, use your kids as props, right? They're your reason. They're not your excuse. Your kids can be your reason. They can be your props. Pick your kids up, do some squats, do some lunges while you're making dinner, take breaks, walk around. There's so many different ways that you can involve movement in your day that doesn't have to be like an hour at the gym. And taking breaks from your work and going for a walk or whatever is also going to help your productivity, okay? And it's also going to help your sleep. And then the last little one to help improve your sleep is trying to keep your meals to 3 hours before bedtime, which can be really hard, especially when we tend to get these cravings in the evening, right? A lot of people that commented on the post yesterday said that they've noticed that a lot of their cravings come in the afternoon and evenings. Those evening ones are tricky. And I don't mean, those evening ones are common, and I feel like they're harder they're easier to not be intentional about, I should say it like that. But if you can keep your meals to 3 hours before bedtime, your body goes through that sweep cleaner mode, and then your body can focus on actually being restful and restorative when you're sleeping and not trying to digest your food. So if you can improve your sleep patterns, you are super, super likely to also notice that your cravings adjust as well. Boredom. We talked about boredom and how boredom is an emotion that basically says you're not willing to engage in a meaningful activity, right? That's kind of where we tend to be when we're bored. It's like, I don't know what else to do. So here's what I want you to think about if you're bored and you're wanting to snack because of it. Maybe this is something that you noticed over the last couple days as you've been tracking. I tend to want to eat when I'm bored, when I'm not doing anything else. So why aren't you doing something else? If you have some time on your hands, why are you not trying something new? Are you afraid to try something new? Are you maybe afraid of the commitment that it's going to take to try something new? Is it a safer, more comfortable option to not do anything. Often those feelings of cravings are the same as when we're bored as it is when we're actually hungry. So ask yourself, would any food suffice right now? When you're hungry, ask yourself, when you're feeling like you need to walk to the kitchen or the pantry, you can ask yourself, would anything kick this hunger right now? Could I eat some broccoli right now and be totally satisfied? If the answer is yes, you're probably actually hungry. If it's not, if you're like, no, I just want chips, you're probably not actually hungry. You're probably bored. You're probably going through one of these other triggers, okay? But that's a really good check-in question for yourself. Would any food suffice? And if I'm just bored, what else could I do? Why am I not doing something else? What else could I do that could shift that for me? Okay. Stress. This is such a big one, especially right now. And there are so many different things, and I'm going to do a lot of work on this too, and I'm going to work a lot in my one-on-one program with this one too. But we need to recognize if that's what's happening, okay? If you recognize that the reason that you are reaching for those foods, the reason that you're craving those things is because you're stressed, right? And which there's lots of things that you can be aware of in that sense. Are you craving comfort foods? Those are going to be things that are high in fat, high in sugar, high in salt. Those tend to be those comfort foods that we reach for when we're stressed out and we just want that comfort. Ask yourself if there are other stress-reducing activities that could help you instead. Could you get in a quick workout? That's a huge one for me. Sometimes if I am like up to here with my stress, I will take the dogs out for a run if I'm able to get out. Because just getting your blood pumping is often really good for clearing that stress level out. I just lost my train of thought. Could you call a friend? Call a friend and talk and have a good conversation. That can be very stress reducing. Read a book. Meditate, right? There are so many different ways that we can reduce our stress in the moment that's going to give us those alternatives to mindlessly snacking. Those mindless snacks tend to be habitual. And that was one of the other things that we talked about, habits. Did you notice? I would love to know how many people noticed that when you were tracking, you wanted to snack just because that's like what you do at that time of day, or like that's what you do along with that other activity. You grab for stuff as you're feeding your kids. You grab for a snack because you sat down in front of the TV for your show. You walk in the door, you put your keys down, and you grab a beer, right? Like there are these things that we do that have just become part of our routine. They're things that have become habits because we do them enough times that we just learn them and our body starts to expect them. So all of a sudden now you've sat down in front of the TV and your body's like, oh, this is when I eat those chips. Oh, this is when I go for that snack, or like set my keys down. This is when I open the fridge and I grab a beer, right? We create these habits by doing them over and over and over again over time. But the thing is that we can replace these habits that may not align with feeling our best with new habits. And this is something that I teach in my program. And it's referred to in some areas as habit stacking, where you stack a habit you want on top of something that you already do. So it can take a little bit of time to kind of create these new routines, but you can create a new routine with it that your body learns to then expect again. So instead of sitting down on the couch and now I'm reaching for that bag of chips, now I know that when I sit down on the couch, I actually reach for a book. Or when I walk in the door and I set my keys down, before that triggered going to the fridge and grabbing a beer, I'm going to create the routine where now setting my keys down tells me that I need to go put on my workout clothes and I'm going to get a workout in, or whatever the habit is, would depend, and again, this is another one of those things that's totally variable depending on your specific situation, your lifestyle, all of those things, but you can recreate your routine and make it something that's going to be more in line with how you want to feel, because that's really what this is all about. And the last thing that I want to just touch on, kind of going along with those habits, is being in social situations. So parties, just regular gatherings, any kind of social event, those are so easy to become mindless about when it comes to the food piece of it. We have a tendency to make the event about the food rather than putting the focus on the people. But really, when you think about it, would you even notice if somebody wasn't eating all the food, all the chips and the dips at an event like that? No, you're not paying attention to what other people are eating, right? If you make it about the people, the tasty foods, the big spread is more of a bonus. And there's lots of tips and tricks that you can do to prepare yourself ahead of time, right? You can eat nourishing foods during the day. You can make sure that you stay really hydrated. You can bring your own food to events if you're not sure what it's going to be there. Obviously, that's dependent on the type of event, but that's an option as well. Don't socialize by the food spread is a huge one. How often do you grab your plate and then you just start talking right there, and then you're like, oh yeah, and you just keep picking off the buffet, right? Make your plate and walk away so you're not standing there where it's super easy to just be mindlessly grabbing at food while you chat. I guess one more that I want to touch on is that a lot of times when we have cravings, we try these things and we still have the cravings. One, it can take a while, but two, there may be an underlying issue. Okay. A lot of times salty cravings, when you kind of use these tips and tricks and tools and you still are noticing the cravings after a period of time where you're like, I probably should be adjusted to this by now, there might be an underlying issue, okay? Imbalanced hormones, that type of thing can actually create cravings. Thyroid issues, kidney issues, those are things that you would definitely want to go get checked from your medical provider, and just make sure that there's not something underlying. Okay, but the main idea that I want you to walk away from is that we can learn to be mindful about eating to fuel our bodies and fuel our spirits. Recognizing our cravings as cues from our body and honoring our bodies for what it's trying to tell us. It's something we'll work on together if you join me in my one-on-one program to really dive in and become more self-aware and in tune. And when you're in tune with your body and what it's telling you, it's a really big stepping stone to feeling your best. So what I want you to do today, your homework for day 2, is to take that craving that you noticed from your log the last few days. You may have noticed a couple different situations where you tend to feel a craving coming on, or maybe there was just one very obvious, no, this is my craving that I struggle with. And I want you to use one of these tools to mindfully shift it, okay? And there's a couple things that I want you to think about to do that. What do you want to do about the craving, okay? Because again, food freedom, if you want that piece of chocolate and you really want that piece of chocolate, eat that piece of chocolate because you're choosing to have that piece of chocolate, not because you're feeling like you can't control yourself. If you don't want that piece of chocolate, you don't choose it because you're choosing to, not because you're restricting yourself. Okay, so what do you want to do with it? The easiest way, I think, to kind of set yourself up to be able to do that is to think about the person that you want to be. How does that version of you feel physically? How does that, when you think of your ideal level 10 life, what does that feel like physically? What does that feel like emotionally? What does that feel like spiritually? Put yourself into that situation, be that person, and how would that version of you handle that craving or that situation? Okay, and then you can use those tools to shift your actions to be more in alignment with that woman. Because that's really the ultimate goal of all of this. The ultimate goal of all of this is to be the person that you need to be to live the life that you want to live. That, for those of you that know me, and if you don't know me, that is my goal every day, is to become a little bit more of the woman that I need to be to live the life that I'm trying to create for myself. And that having that in my head really helps me navigate some of these situations and just be more intentional, be more mindful, pay attention to what my body's telling me. All the things really come down to, how do I want to feel and what do I need to do to be that person? So that's what I want you to do today. Homework. Take that craving you noticed, think of how that person, how that version of you, that like level 10, this is who I want to be. How would that person handle that craving? And what can you do to shift into that response? And we want to hear about it, okay? I'm going to post another kind of check-in thing tomorrow where we'll check in. And then Friday, I'm going to share some recipes. I'm going to share some really simple swaps that you can make for some of those things that you might crave but maybe aren't in alignment with how you actually want to feel. I'm going to share some recipes, and we're just going to kind of wrap things up with some swap examples. But I've got some really exciting stuff coming up, so stay tuned. I'm going to drop a post in just a little bit that I am like beyond excited about. So make sure that you tune in, stay tuned, all the things. Let me know how things are going. Let me know if I can help in any way. And have a fantastic, what is today? Wednesday? Have a fantastic Wednesday, and we will see you all soon.